There's a truth we often forget. The way you begin your morning shapes the way you live the rest of your day. Too often, we wake up groggy, reaching for our phones, and our minds are swept into chaos. Negative news, messages, the demands of others. And so the day slips by, lived unconsciously. But what if, instead of reacting to the world, we began each morning with awareness, inner strength, and a clear intention to live? Stoic philosophy, refined over millennia, offers us a compass, not to control the world, but to govern ourselves. In this video, we'll explore 7 Stoic morning practices to steady the mind and sharpen the will, so that each day isn't just endured, but truly lived. 1. Reflection on impermanence. Memento Mori. Perhaps the hardest truth we must learn, and yet constantly avoid, is that everything comes to an end. Nothing in this life is permanent. No sorrow lasts forever, but neither does joy. Everything flows, and so do we. Memento Mori, an ancient Latin phrase, means, remember that you will die. It may sound grim, even morbid, but to those who truly grasp the spirit of Stoicism, it's not a warning. It's a reminder to live more deeply and deliberately each day. When we open our eyes in the morning, few of us truly recognize that being alive is a miracle. We take waking up for granted, assume our bodies will function, and believe there is always more time to apologize, to chase dreams, to travel, to forgive. But impermanence doesn't grant us that luxury forever. One morning will be the last time we ever open our eyes. One hug, one message, one glance could be the final one. No one knows when. And because we don't know, we carry the responsibility to live each day as if it were our last. The Stoic does not reflect on death to feel fear or despair. They do it to cleanse the mind, to realign life around what truly matters. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now, let that determine what you do and say and think," he wasn't stirring panic. He was handing us a mirror, reflecting the raw truth of our mortality. And in that truth lies inner power, a kind of strength untouched by petty worries, unshaken by trivial arguments or shallow distractions. When I first began this practice, it felt strange. Who wants to think about death right after waking up? But I soon realized, contemplating impermanence doesn't pull me down. It pulls me back into the present. It makes me pause before snapping at a loved one over something small. It makes me say thank you and I'm sorry more often. It stops me from postponing what truly matters just because I don't feel ready. More importantly, it reminds me that life isn't about stretching time. It's about filling each moment. In Stoic practice, each morning is a sacred ritual. No altars needed, no chanting, just a moment of quiet where we close our eyes and imagine that today is the last. What would you do differently? How would you treat someone? What would you want to complete before the night falls for good? Just a few minutes with these questions, and you'll be pulled back to the essence. To live not just to exist, but in alignment with the values you believe in. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoics, once said, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And that line woke me up. Not physically, but spiritually. When we think time is abundant, we postpone everything. But when we live as if each day might be our last gift, we stop delaying. We start saying the words that matter. We begin the project we've shelved. We forgive. We dare to live. And then, impermanence is no longer something that makes us sad. It becomes a spiritual force, urging us to live more fully, love more deeply, and master ourselves more completely. We no longer cling to expectations or fear loss. We begin to live more lightly and, paradoxically, more profoundly. Because when we're no longer obsessed with extending life, we begin to focus on the quality of the moment we're in. The practice of Memento Mori requires no elaborate ritual. All you need is a quiet place, a deep breath, and a mind willing to face the truth. Close your eyes and picture the vast universe where stars are born and fade, where life arrives and departs like waves. In that flow, your existence is precious and finite. That's why every day you're granted another sunrise is a sacred one. Live it as a gift, not because it will last forever, but because it won't come again. 2. Morning journaling, building a mirror for the soul. We spend hours each day looking into the mirror, fixing our hair, putting on makeup, choosing clothes, making sure the outside appears in order. But how often do we pause to gaze into the inner mirror, the one reflecting our emotions, our values, our fears, and the silent dialogues we carry within? To the Stoic, morning journaling is not merely recording thoughts. It is spiritual training, a ritual of confronting truths we often avoid throughout the day. Something remarkable happens when we pick up a pen and write down the first thoughts of the day, not for style, grammar, or anyone else's eyes, just to face ourselves, to meet the cluttered mind left behind by dreams, to touch the residue of emotions from yesterday, to sit with ourselves, raw and unfiltered. Stoic journaling doesn't need elaborate rituals, a blank page, a few honest lines, but above all, radical sincerity, because in that moment of writing, no one is judging us. With ourselves, and done consistently, this act can transform a life. Each morning, after reflecting on impermanence, I open my journal and write down 3 things I'm grateful for. It might be a quiet morning, a friend who checked in, or simply the fact that I'm still breathing. Gratitude soothes the undercurrent of dissatisfaction that hums in our minds. It pulls us out of the mindset of lacking and into a state of enough. When we're grateful, we no longer feel the world owes us something. On the contrary, we begin to feel we owe the world our full presence. After gratitude, I ask myself, did I live in alignment with my values yesterday? Were there moments when I reacted emotionally instead of rationally? Times I stayed silent when I should have spoken, or spoke when silence would have served better? These questions aren't for judgment or punishment. They are for learning, for course correction, and for growth. The Stoic believes that each day is a chance to begin again, to inch closer to the person we aspire to be. And the journal becomes our inner map, where each entry marks a step on that journey. A vital part of this habit is setting an intention for the day, not a task list like, I'll complete 5 things, but rather, I will stay calm when provoked, or I will speak the truth even when it's difficult. These intentions aren't slogans or performance metrics. They are ethical compasses. They guide us to act rightly, even when no one is watching. And that, to the Stoic, is the essence of true strength. When Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations, he wasn't writing for an audience. It was a journal, a place where he advised his own soul, reasoned with his mind, and reminded himself to stay anchored in virtue amid the storms of power. If the most powerful man in Rome needed morning journaling to keep from losing himself, perhaps we, living in today's chaos, need it even more. What I love most about journaling is how it makes me befriend myself again. In a world that constantly urges us to move fast, appear fine, and compare relentlessly, stopping to write becomes a quiet act of rebellion and compassion. We don't need to hide anything. We just need to be honest. And that honesty is the first step toward healing, transformation, and authenticity. Not every morning yields something profound. Some days I scribble a few lines and close the book, but the act itself, the discipline of writing, is a message to my soul. I care about you. I won't drift through life in a daze. And over time, each page becomes a mirror reflecting the arc of inner growth. Each line a footprint, each morning a small step forward. And if we are patient, the image of who we are begins to take shape. Not perfect, but increasingly clear and true. 3. Set intentions, not just goals. Master the outer world by turning inward. For most of our lives, we're taught to set clear goals, career goals, financial goals, fitness goals, New Year's resolutions. We make lists, draw up plans, divide our time, all to chase some result in the future. And often what happens is this: we feel pressured, rushed, and sometimes disappointed when outcomes fall short. At times, even when we reach the goal, there is still a lingering emptiness. So where's the problem? To the Stoic, the issue isn't setting goals. It's that we place our focus on the outcome, something we never fully control. The Stoic doesn't reject goals, but they place something more important above them: intention. Intentions don't fixate on results. They center on inner character, how we choose to show up in the world, and the attitude we carry through each day. A goal might be, I want a promotion in 6 months. And intention would be, whatever my title, I will work with integrity and full dedication. Goals can be derailed by bosses, markets, or luck, but intention, that belongs solely to us. And that's why the Stoic anchors moral worth in what lies within our control. No one can promise you'll get what you want tomorrow, but you can choose to live today with courage, patience, generosity, restraint, and wisdom. Intentions help keep us grounded, especially in uncertain conditions. They act like an anchor in life's turbulent sea, steadying us when storms rise. When you set a clear intention in the morning, you're reminding yourself, I may not control what happens, but I control how I meet it. Each morning, I write down 1 or 2 simple intentions for the day. Today I'll speak less and listen more. I won't let emotions steer my actions. I'll focus on doing quality work, not chasing recognition. These aren't hollow affirmations. They are inner commitments, a moral compass that helps me navigate the flood of choices each day. And strangely, when I live from intention, life feels lighter because I'm no longer burdened by what I can't control. In a society obsessed with performance, productivity, and measurable success, living by intention may seem vague or impractical. But think again, how many times have you reached a goal only to feel unfulfilled? How often have you hit a target only to realize your mind was never present for the journey? Living by intention doesn't dismiss results. It simply shifts the focus from what will I get to who will I be while I pursue it. And to me, that's the question worth repeating every morning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if it belongs to someone else, let them worry about it. Your task is to avoid wrongdoing. This captures perfectly the line between what we control and what we don't. When you aim for others' approval, you'll always be disappointed. But if your intention is, today I'll be kind, honest, and not flatter, you can live that truth fully, no matter what others think. And when you live in line with your values, you don't just feel stronger. You begin to taste true freedom. Living with intention also protects us from the trap of comparison. Goals often tie to outward markers of success, making it easy to glance sideways, feel small, or grow impatient. But intentions are personal, deep, and uncopyable. No one can measure the patience you practice today, or the calm you held in a heated moment. Only you know, and that is enough. Because Stoicism isn't about displaying virtue, it's about living in harmony with your conscience. Try this. Tomorrow morning, before walking out the door, pause for a minute and ask yourself, who do I want to be today? The answer may change each day, but what matters is this: you're living deliberately. You're not letting the world sweep you away. You're stepping forward with clarity. And in a chaotic world, The one who lives with intention is the one who doesn't lose themselves. 4. Practice discomfort. Choose hardship voluntarily. In modern society, we are encouraged to seek comfort, from the soft bed to the morning cup of coffee, from cool air conditioning to apps that eliminate the slightest inconvenience. We are conditioned to believe that the less discomfort we feel, the better life is. But for the Stoic, comfort is not the goal. It's a temptation, because prolonged comfort doesn't build resilience. It makes us soft in thought, quick to react, quick to anger, quick to quit at the slightest friction. And that's why a core Stoic practice is to deliberately face discomfort, not when forced, but by choice. Each morning, we can choose a cold shower instead of a warm one, not because cold water holds magical benefits for the skin or metabolism, but because it becomes the day's first test of will. When your hand touches the cold faucet, your entire body and brain scream, "No, don't do it." And it's in that moment that you learn to observe your inner resistance and still act according to reason. Cold showers don't make you a superhero, but they teach you this: discomfort is not the enemy, it's a tool. Every time you step into freezing water, you reinforce a mental habit. I can endure, and I will still do what I know is right. Discomfort isn't only physical. It might be skipping your morning coffee, not out of strict discipline, but to remind yourself that energy comes from intention, not caffeine. It might be walking to work instead of choosing the fastest route. Slowing down in a world obsessed with speed is its own form of discomfort. We've been trained to equate success with pace, but the Stoic knows speed is no substitute for depth, and depth only comes when we dare to move slowly, when we confront the empty spaces that haste tries to avoid. Once, I walked to work during a heavy rainstorm. Instead of calling a ride like I usually would, I walked over 2 kilometers without an umbrella, choosing to feel the full weight of discomfort. Soaked, cold, uncomfortable. None of it was pleasant. But along that walk, I realized something profound. Discomfort doesn't kill you. It teaches you to endure without rebellion. When we stop resisting what can't be avoided, we begin to accept. And in that acceptance, a strange freedom arises. We stop fearing discomfort because we've become familiar with it. We've trained with it. The ancient Stoics had a principle: at least once a month, live like the poor, eat little, dress simply, sleep on the floor. And ask yourself, is this what I was so afraid of? The point isn't asceticism. It's to shatter the fear of loss, the very thing that traps the modern mind in cycles of consumption, comparison, and anxiety. When you realize you're still okay without the comforts you've grown used to, a new kind of strength takes root, because nothing shakes us more than the belief, I couldn't live without that. Each time we voluntarily step into discomfort, we remind ourselves that strength doesn't come from avoiding hardship, but from accepting it, facing it, and walking through it with intention. And the beauty of this practice is that, over time, our tolerance builds almost invisibly. We no longer rage at traffic. We don't collapse over a disappointing email. We don't panic when a relationship ends, because our minds have been seasoned by adversity, and we no longer see it as abnormal. The Stoic doesn't seek out suffering, but neither do they flee from it. They understand that if you've never trained in hardship, then when real adversity comes, you won't know how to stand. And the truth is, no one lives without struggle. The question is not, will it come? But will I be ready when it does? It's the daily practice of voluntary difficulty, no matter how small, that becomes the armor we wear when life's real storms begin to strike. And one day, you'll realize, in those moments of discomfort you chose to enter, you discovered a stronger, calmer, more sovereign version of yourself. That is the essence of Stoicism. Not to hide from life, but to train yourself to meet it, no matter what form it takes. 5. Meditation, returning to the present. There is something quite strange that most of us don't realize. We rarely live in the here and now. Our bodies may be seated in the present, but our minds wander through what's been or what might be. We're pulled into endless inner conversations, unshaped anxieties, lingering regrets, and imagined futures. And that's what makes life feel heavy, tangled, and perpetually insufficient. In Stoic philosophy, living in the present isn't just a psychological suggestion. It's a moral obligation, a form of reverence for life, and the only way to live as a free human being. To the Stoic, meditation is not about sitting cross-legged under a Buddha statue or relaxing to spa music. It is mindfulness, an honest, intentional return to the present moment. Each morning, when we spend a few minutes with closed eyes and steady breath, simply watching our thoughts drift by like clouds, we are doing something millions never do. We pause. We pause in a world spinning too fast. We pause to hear ourselves. And the miracle is this: when we truly listen, we stop being victims of our emotions and begin to guide them. Epictetus once said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." And this becomes possible only when we can observe our thoughts without becoming them. In meditation, we don't force thoughts away. We simply stop clinging to them. When anger arises, we don't push it down or label it. We just say, anger is here, and return to the breath. When fear surfaces, we don't analyze or fight it. We acknowledge it gently and then return again to the breath, the only place where the present is always waiting. This practice sounds simple, but it requires great patience and discipline because it goes against our reactive instincts. One thing I've discovered after years of Stoic meditation is this: peace doesn't come from having no negative thoughts. It comes from no longer being ruled by them. The breath becomes our anchor, the present our refuge, and pure observation becomes the key to mental freedom. The more I meditate, the more I see emotions are visitors, not landlords, and if I don't chase them or resist them, they come and go, just as nature intended. This is especially powerful on chaotic days, when work overwhelms, when relationships crack, when I lose direction. Instead of escaping outward, I've learned to step back, sit down, breathe, and return to myself. Meditation doesn't need to last for hours. Sometimes 5 minutes at the start of the day is enough. 5 minutes of real awareness. No phone, no noise, no goal, just the present. And from that presence, everything begins to sharpen. We no longer react unconsciously. We stop saying things we'll regret in a flash of anger. We aren't swept away by emotion triggered by a glance or a phrase. There is space between stimulus and response. And in that space, as Viktor Frankl said, it's our power to choose, our freedom, our character. Stoics also recommend meditating on a philosophical thought, a seed of the spirit planted at dawn. Take, for example, Amor, Fati, love your fate. It's not just a catchy phrase, but when you sit in silence and let it echo within like a sacred verse, I welcome whatever comes. I don't just accept it, I love it, because it carries the lesson I need. Then that phrase stops being theory and becomes a living truth. It reshapes how you face life and all that lies beyond your control. Meditation doesn't solve everything, but it gives us distance, a vantage point from which we can see everything differently. And sometimes, a shift in view changes the entire inner landscape. We begin our day, not in panic or haste, but with clarity and presence. We stop chasing peace in a far-off place. We carry it with us in every step, every word, every decision, and with regular practice, you'll find you are no longer swept away by every external storm because you've learned how to return to your roots, to the present, the one place where true peace is always quietly waiting for you to come home. 6. Revisiting Stoic wisdom. Learning not just to know, but to live. In an age where information floods in at lightning speed, we read countless words each day. News, comments, viral posts, yet very few actually make us pause and reflect. Reading a lot doesn't mean we understand deeply, and understanding deeply doesn't mean we live any differently. The Stoic does not read to boast knowledge or to win debates. They read to transform thought into action, to let words sink into the flesh, becoming a compass for every decision made in daily life. Because to them, philosophy doesn't live in books. It lives in every word we speak, every gesture we make, every choice we carry into the world. Each morning, spending a few minutes reading a short passage from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a letter from Seneca, or a teaching from Epictetus is not about stuffing memory, but about clearing the mind, like wiping a mirror each morning to see ourselves more clearly. Stoic philosophers didn't write to instruct others. They wrote to remind themselves, and that's how we should approach their work, as a personal dialogue, an invitation to face ourselves, honestly, without avoidance and without excuse. Some mornings, I reread a single sentence, live as if every act of yours were to be written in history. That sentence stays with me throughout the day, shaping how I show up, in meetings where I want to interrupt, in traffic where anger rises, in moments where lying feels like the easy way out. Because I planted a seed of moral responsibility in the morning, I move through the day with more awareness. Reading is no longer passive. It becomes a ritual that activates the will to live deliberately. The Stoic knows the mind is like a garden. If we don't deliberately plant good seeds each day, weeds of distraction, greed, and envy grow on their own. That's why they encourage reading and contemplation each morning, not to escape life, but to engage it more deeply. We don't need to read much or memorize anything. Just read slowly, sip each sentence like tea. The line that makes you pause, that's the one you needed. And if you live with it for just one day, it's already become a part of you. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside of it. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't addressing legions or senators. He was talking to himself, a Roman emperor, but also a man wrestling with emotions, ambition, and pressure. He wrote those words not to appear strong, but to keep from losing himself in power, to stay human within the storm. And when we read those words today, we're learning to do the same in our own lives. Reading Stoic thought is not about finding answers to every problem. It's about finding the right perspective to face them. When Epictetus said, "We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond," he wasn't minimizing suffering. He was restoring to us the greatest human power, the ability to choose our attitude. And each time we read with an open heart, we find that these ancient words are not distant. They are mirrors for the present, lanterns for when we're lost. One habit I treasure is marking the passages that stir something inside, then revisiting them weeks later, to find they now hold deeper meaning, reshaped by life. Stoic wisdom doesn't change, but our minds change. Our lives evolve. And so the depth of understanding grows with us. That's why a single sentence can speak differently to the young and the seasoned. But anyone can begin today, right here, with just a paragraph. Reading each morning isn't a way to escape reality. It's preparation for it. Not to make us cold or detached, but to steady the mind amid chaos, to preserve our integrity in a world shifting by the second. Because in the end, the Stoic isn't the one who knows the most, but the one who lives what they know. 7. Amor Fati, love your fate. Among all Stoic teachings, Amor Fati may be one of the most powerful and one of the most demanding. It's not just an invitation to accept fate, but a call to love whatever happens, no matter what it is. Amor Fati in Latin means love your fate, but this isn't a passive kind of love, a resigned acceptance. It's an active, courageous love, one that arises only when we understand that everything in life, good or bad, is a necessary part of our inner evolution. To the Stoic, when things don't go our way, it doesn't mean something has gone wrong. On the contrary, it may be exactly what we need, even if we're not yet wise enough to see it. A broken relationship, a missed opportunity, a humiliating mistake, viewed through the lens of Amor Fati, all of these become tailored lessons. They arrive not to harm, but to forge character, reveal weaknesses, and shape us into stronger versions of ourselves. Amor Fati teaches us not to ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead, "What is this here to teach me?" Each morning before stepping into the day, I take a moment to remind myself, whatever comes today, I will welcome it as part of the journey I have chosen. With the spirit of Amor Fati in your heart, you move through life with a quiet kind of steadiness, not because you expect everything to go smoothly, but because you're no longer afraid when it doesn't, because you know, whatever comes, you can learn from it, rise from it, and carry on with a heart free of bitterness or blame. The hardest part of Amor Fati isn't the theory, it's the practice. It's easy to love your fate when life flows well, when you are praised, successful, and healthy. But how do you love the bad days, the failures, the loneliness that tightens the chest? The answer isn't to fake positivity or lie to yourself. The answer lies in opening up to reality as it is, without embellishment, without denial, without avoidance. And in that full acceptance, something remarkable happens. You stop being life's victim and become its companion. No matter how rough the path may be, I've had seasons when everything seemed to fall apart. Work misaligned, loved ones gone, faith shaken. In those moments, it was tempting to ask, "Why me?" or "What if things had gone differently?" But when I paused, sat down, and breathed deeply with the spirit of Amor Fati, I began to see from another angle. This wasn't punishment, but training. Every experience, however painful, held a hidden gift, if I was patient enough to find it. And the more I lived through Amor, I realized the very things I once wanted to avoid had shaped me the most. Amor Fati doesn't paralyze you in the face of adversity. On the contrary, it gives you a quiet strength to act without resentment, to change what can be changed without growing bitter over what cannot. The Stoic doesn't wait passively for fate to annul it. They act boldly, purposefully, while holding a deep acceptance that outcomes may not align with desires. And that's okay, because what matters more than control is living with virtue, with dignity intact, regardless of the result. You can begin practicing Amor Fati in the smallest ways. When someone cancels plans last minute, see it as a chance to spend time with yourself. When your schedule falls apart, look for what unexpected door may now be opening. When you feel defeated, ask yourself, if this came to teach me patience, humility, or redirection, what is the lesson? And slowly, over time, Amor Fati ceases to be a lofty idea. It becomes a way of living, a soft but sturdy armor that lets you walk through life not with frustration, but with clarity, openness, and the quiet trust that everything that happens is what was meant to happen. When I first started practicing Stoic morning rituals, I didn't expect to become perfectly awakened or enlightened overnight. I just noticed how easily I was swept up by the pace of life, how my mind spiraled over trivial things, how my emotions swung wildly, and I realized that if I kept living that way, I'd always be reacting, never truly in control of myself. That was when I began taking small steps, sitting quietly for 5 minutes, writing a few lines, asking myself how I wanted to live that day. And over time, those little things became a habit that helped me feel more grounded amid the chaos. There were mornings when I didn't want to do anything, when my mood was heavy, work piled up, and my mind wanted to procrastinate everything. But simply opening my journal and writing a single question, "What virtue do I want to live with today?" brought a strange clarity, and the feeling of agency slowly returned. Not because the world had changed, but because I changed how I entered the day. To me, Stoicism is not a philosophy of rigidity, but an art of living in an unpredictable world, a way to preserve inner stillness even when everything outside is in flux. And it's the steady, simple practice, no matter how small, that helps me live more truthfully, more deeply, and more resiliently, one day at a time. Each morning is a chance for spiritual rebirth, a moment when we not only open our eyes, but also open our hearts, clear our minds, and choose to live more deliberately than the day before. If you've stayed with this video until now, perhaps there is something within you stirring too, a quiet desire to master your emotions, rise above negativity, and live with inner freedom. So don't let this inspiration fade at the final moment. Choose just one of the 7 morning practices and begin tomorrow. And if you need more strength to walk this path, keep watching the next video, where we'll explore how to build inner resilience through the Stoic spirit. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming next. Share this video if you feel it's worth spreading. I'll see you again on another morning, where we won't just live, but live awake.